Hey guys, I'm going to attempt to paint this little painting photograph. This is a photograph I took in Yellowstone last summer, and it was a full scene, and I just cropped it down to this little fisherman guy and the reflection. So I'm trying to figure out just how to approach this, and I thought I'd just do a little video and take you along in my process because I'm really not sure how to approach it. So I'm just going to have to dive in and see where it goes, and if I learn something from this and I can take it into another painting, or maybe do this one multiple times until I like the feel of it, then it's a success. I feel like I'm kind of in a little bit of a place where I feel a little bit of a block, and I'm not sure why. I don't know if you all get that once in a while, probably, because I think we all do. So I'm just going to push through it and see what I can bring out of it. So here we go. Let's get started. Okay, first off, as we're getting started, I want to show you something. Turn this upside down. And when I turn it upside down, I suddenly I'm not focused on the details of the fisherman. I've got big shapes. Take that guy out of the scene, and I've got a big light shape here. And then a passage of this green. Actually, this is kind of one big shape in and of itself, this green, and then this streak here. So I might just turn this thing upside down and work from the top to the bottom. Does that make sense? Bottom to the top, upside down, and focus on this as my beginning. I am going to add, before I do that, I think I will use this white liquid frisket, this incredible white mask liquid frisket. This I keep in my fridge to keep it fresh. So I think I will just add some of that in here, not too much. What happens if you use the liquid frisket masking fluid is you do get a hard edge. So I don't want a whole lot of that, and I definitely don't want these trees to have a hard edge. So I might just come halfway down the page and do a very loose and drippy application. So let's see how that goes. That's my thought. So diving in, right? I'm just getting started. This is just a old brush, #1, old art media. Store was in Portland, Oregon, and this is from there. I've got I want a small tip because I'm not covering a lot of space. I've got this wet, put a little liquid soap in it. The liquid soap helps it clean up after I'm done. So one thing to not do is shake your liquid frisket. I don't know about anybody else, but I tend to shake things. Shake your mustard so you don't get all that watery ick all over your bread. Well, don't do that with this. This will get bubbles in it, and you do not want bubbles in it. So I can just start off. I'm going to mask in the fisherman guy. Just come right inside of all of the drawing and fill it in. That way, the reason for that is because I want to paint this background water in in such a way that I don't have to stop. And if I had to paint around this image, I would be stopping and trying to get around him. And then what happens is you let this other paint dry, and that we don't want. So I'm going to just kind of give a little bit in here. I don't want that too solid, I don't think. I can probably figure that out afterwards by lifting out a little bit, but I'm just kind of doing some squiggles. So that's what I'm going to do in here, is just some squiggly. Okay, I do believe that's enough. I'm going to make it be enough. I'm going to make that call and put my top back on really tight. This stuff has a shelf life, so you definitely want to have the lid on tight and store it in your refrigerator. And it does say here, stir, do not shake. I should have stirred it, I did not. It's non-staining. This stuff will dry with a very semi-yellowish color. You'll know it's dry. Yeah, anyway, so you want to make sure that the lid is on tight and you've got it in your refrigerator. And we're going to rinse this brush, wash this brush off. You don't want to let it dry on your brush. If you let it dry on your brush, you could probably still use it for doing some other things, but don't let it dry on your brush. You save your brush that way by washing it. Okay, so I've taped my paper down, and I've got this handy little size. I love the size of this gator board. Now, I didn't find it like this. I had to cut down a 22 by 15, I think it was, sheet of it. It's about an inch thick, and I just like the size because I can tip it around really easily. So right now this is upside down, and I'm going to start up here. And I have a color on my palette that I don't have very much of it. It's a lavender. That's the color. It's Holbein Lavender. I think I need some more of that. But I'm going to mix that with cobalt blue to get a kind of a subtle, the lavender's got just a really nice feel to it. Although it is a little bit opaque, so you got to be careful. It does get kind of chalky. So I really want to just start up here at the top with a very light color. And we're just going to use the corner. This is a big Holbein. Again, I don't think Holbein makes brushes anymore, but I got this at a Tom Lynch workshop, and I just really love these brushes. And like I said, they just aren't around anymore. So I'm gonna get myself some area there to start adding my blues. It's a little dark right there, so I can just thin that out, spread it around. It's going to dry lighter, so I can know that what I'm putting down here, it's not going to be as dark as it looks right now. So I'm losing some hairs on that brush. It's a little bit on the older side, so I think it's just maybe seen better days. Okay, so I've got that going for me, and like I said, I am winging it on this. I haven't really painted it before. I haven't. So I'm not sure exactly how it's going to go. Never do, really. But I did lay out some colors, some Hooker's green and alizarin, sap green, leaf green, Winsor Newton green gold. This is quinacridone gold. And these two mixed together make a nice warm dark green. So I have that, and then I think I need a bigger brush. I'm going to go with another Holbein brush. This is a 1/2 inch flat, and just, actually I think I want to go with the green gold and start there. But even as I say that, I've got to make sure that I have my paper wet. I don't want it sopping because I want to kind of control it a little bit more, but just a little bit of moisture will keep the paint from drying out too fast. I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to start in here, and we're going to turn that paper upside down or back up. I started upside down, and I'm seeing some of these puddles forming, so that's why I tipped my paper. Maybe I should let that dry. That might be a better idea. So let me grab a little bit of sap green and just get that coming down a little bit, and then I'm going to let this dry. Actually, it looks like it looks okay. So I'm gonna keep going. I'm getting a little bit of, turn that back the other way so I can see what I'm doing. I'm just gonna brush in, touch in some of these darker varying the color up here because it makes it more interesting. And I'm going to tip my paper up and bring some of that down using gravity. And let's just keep it loose and fluid. Remember, there's a passage in here of green. And need a little bit more red in there. See how that grayed it down and darkened it up? I'm getting some splatters in there, it's okay. And I got a little too much red in there, I felt, so I added a little more concentrated green. Now in here I'm getting a little of that paint just kind of splaying out, so I can come in and lift that with a thirsty brush, just get some of that and remember I'm just doing this, I'm not really sure where I'm going with it, so I'm just kind of taking you along on this little journey, learning journey. Trying to stay away somewhat. I think I've obliterated most of my tree reflections. I'm gonna go this way. And get some of my blue coming down, maybe into that. That might have been a mistake. I add a little bit of water up here, but I'm just gonna come in with some of those darker greens. Let's see what happens. And flip it back. I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm just playing around. Hopefully it'll turn out. Sometimes you just have to kind of go experiment and see. Hopefully you can see my board here. I've got it all tipped wonky. Grab some more of that leaf green. This is hysterical. I don't know if it's going to turn out. Or not. We're just going to... We're now at the point where I'm just going to see where it goes. And that's about all I can say about that. Oh boy, a little too much red in there. Spread the red. Let's see what happens when we go like this. Oh my goodness, how about that? Let's do that. That'll be fun. How about a little blue in there? That would be fun. And then let's bring it up into here. That'll be fun. And the more I keep on doing this, the wetter my paper becomes. And it's like getting all warpy. But I feel like as long as the paper is still wet, I can work with it. And where it's starting to dry over here, I'm just going to add more paint. I'm going to try to preserve that little light area over there. And I definitely lost my trees, my reflections, but that's okay. tip it this way. And get some water flowing down there. Move it from sitting in that one spot. I was kind of feeling a little bit like that was too. I'm also thinking I don't want to be too stuck with thinking this has to be a certain way, when maybe it's just the way to do it is to just bring out the lights again by adding water and letting the dripping happen. Hopefully you can see that. Let me see. Clean-ish water to get that paint flowing. Still wet enough that as I lift that out, it's kind of filling back in a little bit. The edges are softening. And I am kind of thinking this is fun, actually. I like how it's coming into here, so that could have been a happy mistake when this all started going a whole different direction. And all that moisture was up there under the tape. I'm gonna get this big brush again. This guy, this Goliath guy. I'm gonna kind of spread those bristles out. It's pretty dry, but it's still got a little bit of moisture in it, so I don't know. I'm gonna see how I feel about just dragging that across there. Not bad. I think I'm gonna let it dry. Just see what happens with this. This paper's so lumpy, I can't really do too much. I'm seeing some fuzz in there and I want to clean it up, but if I do that now, it's likely to ruin things. I do, however, like what happened here. I'm going to pick a little of that up with my brush and come into that a little bit. This paper, by the way, is Fabriano, Aristico, and it lifts really easy. So this is a 1/2 inch, and I'm just kind of splaying that out too and getting it nice and flat. I don't want too much water on the brush when I do that because it will blossom. So let's let that dry, see what happens, and go from there. Okay, so I am reasonably happy with this. It wasn't quite what I had envisioned, but you know what? It really, gosh, it never really is with watercolor. You cannot accurately predict what's going to happen. You just have to let go of any preconceived ideas of what the end result's going to look like. And that's the fun part. You have to embrace it. You have to accept that that's part of this medium. So I did finish this off. I let it dry for a while just all by itself and then finished it off with a hair dryer. And I've said this before, by using a hair dryer, it stops that settling process. And there wasn't much of that was happening anyway, but I decided to let it go for a little while, and there was some granulation in here and here. But just to get the paper flattened out quicker, I wanted to get finish it off with a hair dryer. So now I decided that I'm going to try working in sections. So I think I'm going to grab a different brush. I've got this Heritage. This is a number 6 as well, but if you can tell, this one has a much pointier tip than this one. This is a Heritage. This is a long round, and they're both number 6. But this one definitely comes to more of a tip, and I don't really want to have that tip kind of lifting out. I think a softer, more subtle curve on the end of that brush is going to be a little bit better. And it also has the ability to have a bit of a tip if I come right up on the tippy tip of it. So without further ado, we are going to try working in sections, and I'm going to come on this side. It's the darker side. For some reason, I just want to start there, so I'm going to go with that feeling. And I've brought in a little bit of ultramarine deep. You could use French ultramarine to get a deep blue as well. Those are both deeper blues than your just basic ultramarine blue. And Holbein is the one that makes the deep. And French ultramarine, I think you can get pretty much from any brand, maybe. I don't know that for certain, but I've also brought in a little bit more of the alizarin. So I've got ultramarine blue deep, Hooker's green, and alizarin kind of combo of the 3. And I'll leave a little edges of, you know, the different color so I can dip into it. I like doing that. So let's grab the paper towel and dive in to this water. Ha! Funny. Okay, and I'm starting dry. I'm going to start it dry and just start kind of squiggly lines. And the reason for that is it's water, and I'm just wanting it to look like water. So I can touch in a little bit of the, actually, let me rinse my brush, touch in a little of the green that's lighter in there. This is going to look drying pretty quick here, so I want to make sure and do what I'm going to do in each section before it dries. I rinsed my brush, and I'm just going to use the water on my brush to spread that around a little bit. And I can come right over those lighter areas that are the tree. I'm just gonna actually, so right there in that little section, I wasn't super thrilled with doing that on the dry paper. So I'm gonna make an adjustment. Lift out a little bit of that I didn't like so much. And spread that around a bit. So let's try getting it wet over on this edge. And doing the squiggly. That way it softens a little bit more. I think that's a little bit better. I might just have to lift out some of that, some of those trees. I'm going to get a little of the alizarin and that gold up in here a little bit along that. Just going to let it spread a little bit more, make it look like maybe the bank had a reflection or some up in there. Brush. So as I've come down, I'm liking better what's happening. So when I come over to this side, I'm just going to get it wet and add some bigger strokes. Play around with it too much, I'm not liking what happens, so I need to really minimize what I'm doing here. I'm gonna add the same type of thing that I did over there. Look like the brush is kind of reflecting into the water. There's a little bit of just plain water. I want to take a step back for a minute and see what this looks like from across the room and see what adjustments I might be wanting to make in regards to the water and the reflection. So hang tight, I'm gonna take a step back. Okay, so I have decided to keep pushing forward, even though I kind of feel like right now I don't know if I'm happy or not with it. I kind of like some things. I like what ended up happening up here. I like this light area. Not so thrilled about this hard edge. So I'm standing here just thinking, do I want to keep going or do I want to stop? Do I want to start over? And in the meantime, all this time is passing and I don't like that. So I'm just going to keep pushing forward on this because a lot of times if you do that and you keep going, things kind of have a way of working out. And so with that being said, I've got a fresh paper towel, the same little puddles of paint, and I am going to grab, I'm liking these flat ones for this particular painting. So I'm going to keep going with that. I'm noticing that this comes all the way down, this darker area. So I'm going to add some of that in there. I'm going to do it with the wet surface. There's fuzz on this paper. And I'm going to grab maybe a little of the lighter green to start and just kind of flick it in there with my brush. Maybe I am going to like this more than I think. I just don't know. It's hard to say till you keep on going with things. I like that a little bit more grayed down though. It looks a little too green for the deepness of that water. So very, very corner of that brush is what I'm using. And I'm gonna just come right in and soften that a little bit with a cleaned brush with a little bit of water on it. So it's softening that a little bit. And using my pinky to stabilize my hand. As I drag the brush. Gives me a little bit more control, a little bit, instead of being all kind of jiggly all over the place, it gives me a little more stability, so I like that. A little deeper still, just kind of a variety of those greens. And if I add a little bit of dark around his head, that's going to help him stand out. Actually, a little bit of the cobalt blue would be nice in there. So I'm going to get a little of that more blued down green as I'm coming over here. Even a little bit more blue. Careful not to lose my lights. Kind of varying the stroke a little bit there too. Wish this wasn't moving around so much, but well. Set that down and stabilize this. Now the heel of my hand is what is stabilizing me. And come right up into that. And where part of me loves this paper and part of me is not liking it so much, the part that I love is that I am able to come up and lift out of there, but when you don't want to lift, it becomes annoying. So that is a love-hate relationship. And I think I'm gonna lift a little bit more and soften some of that. So that is the love part of it. So I wasn't really loving that hard edge there. I'm gonna get that wet. I like that light, but I want it a little greener. So I can just kind of soften some of that got a little bit too hard edged in there. Get that a little wet in there. I want this area to be a little darker. A little bit of blue in there. Kind of helps frame it in a little bit too, I think. How about a little bit of, just a little bit of opera. With my lavender and cobalt mix. Water that down a little bit. And then I'm going to come over here with big strokes, kind of skipping across the paper. And I'm liking what I'm seeing here, so I'm going to let that dry and maybe come back, actually, before I go away, I think I want to add just a little bit of, there's that masking fluid in there, and I want that to actually do something when I take that off, so. But I like this kind of circular look, even though I don't have circles there. I still want to kind of get the illusion that there's like movement in the water. So I'm going to let that dry. We want to let it completely dry before that masking fluid comes off. And we don't want to blow dry or use a heat gun or anything with that masking fluid on there. I mean, if I do that, I'm really careful about it. I don't want to heat that up too much. It can be damaging to the paper. We don't want to do that. And it can actually cause it to set in there a little bit more, and we don't want to do that. Okay, so we're just going to let it dry on its own. All right, I think it's dry enough to take the masking fluid off and keep pushing forward. And because I kind of stayed so light down in here, there's not a huge showing of where I had that masking fluid for the water anyway. The guy here, yes, so we protected him or her, whatever the case may be. And now let's determine what color to paint the clothing. And I'm tempted to go with red, because red and green are complementary colors, and there's a lot of green in this. So I think that if I go with anything too subtle, he's not going to stand out very much. So I could, and there's a lot of yellowy color in there too. So let's just look and see what might work best. I've got my, I'm going to clear out a little space here, sop up some of that. Okay, so this is permanent red, and I think I will add to that some of the alizarin and some of the gold, just to get a warm, that I could even do burnt orange. It's almost that same color. I'm going to plop in a little bit of Opera Rose into that just to give it a glow. All right, so here we go. We're going to make this guy somewhat bright. Don't want to get too carried away here. I'm going to darken up. Oops, wow, that was way too dark. Darken up part of him. Actually, not that arm so much. And I'm going to come right up in here. I don't want that to be such a hard line. He's far away, so it's going to need to look natural. So that was a little bit of, I think that's a little bit of raw sienna in there. It's a little bit too harsh there, so I'm going to lift out a little bit of that. Just add a touch of a shadow there. And there's a fishing line, rod right here, but I'm not going to add that quite yet. I'm going to wait a little while. I think I'm going to add this, just a little touch of a line there. And I forgot a little bit of a reflection of that head. I'm going to try out this little eradicator brush. This is from Rosemary and Company. I'm going to see what happens when I lift out some highlights here. Use my whole arm on this one to pull down. Get yourself a nice straight line that way. So I've got this upright. Pull it down. And do the same thing over here. Applying a little bit of pressure. I'm going to come down, skipping over some of the bright there because you wouldn't see the reflection of the tree when the sky is what's reflecting. And I'm going to just add a little bit of raw sienna into that. Burnt sienna, or raw umber even maybe, mixed with that. Just a little browner. No, not quite that dark though, or not quite that brown. About some burnt sienna and some cobalt blue just to tone it down. That should work. Squiggling all over the place, so I keep on wiping that up. So Jeez, not getting a nice straight line. I need to get my hand more steady with that. That's looking a little too bright for my liking. I'm gonna get a little bit of, let's see, Indian red. Looks like it might be just a little bit browner. So I'm just gonna blob that on there. Tone that down just a bit. Okay, I'm going to take a step back again and look at this. Actually, it's coming along. It's actually working out better than I was anticipating. So I am going to look at it again and see if there's anything else I can do to improve this. So I'm pretty happy with this, and I'm glad I kept going. That is the moral of the story of this painting, is sometimes you just have to push yourself a little. Like I said, I've been feeling a little block or stuck in my painting practice. And coming into the new year, I want to do more of what I love, and I do love landscapes, so that's kind of what I'm intending to focus on instead of going all over the place with different things. So hopefully I'll have more landscapes coming up in future videos, but on this one, there's a couple things I didn't really, I didn't love the shape of that. I don't know why. I just thought maybe I would kind of eliminate that little part. I think it was a little too arched. And this guy, I'm going to grab a little darker red here. The red in the water is a little too bright and light. It should be darker. So I'm going to just touch in a little bit darker version of that. I also thought to grab a little gouache and brighten up his hat, but I wanted to lift out just a little on that edge of the shirt. A little tiny bit here under his hat. Kind of maybe connect that to the dark in the water. Just this tiniest detail there, and then I need to finish up add a little bit of a shadow right in the back of his hat without getting it too dark, because it's next to the water that's dark, so we want that to stand out a little bit more. This is a number 2 brush, just almost a little bit too big, but and let's see, just this tiniest touch of, I didn't even put a glob there, I just put a tiny little smudge, and I'm just gonna touch that in right there. And just feel a tiny little bit under his hat some more. He is the center of attention, the focal point, if you will. So we're gonna want to draw some attention to him. And I'm gonna grab a smaller brush. Actually, I have a number 1 Princeton Velvet Touch. And this is a little bit of a deeper blue, little Prussian blue there. Just ever so slightly adding some detail. So the fishing pole is the last detail I'm going to add, and then I'll call this painting done. Oh, I was going to lift out that. So I've got this little eradicator from Rosemary and Company. I'm just going to straighten that swoosh out a little bit and get rid of the arc that I didn't like. It was just a little too archy. Okay, so that's that. And oh yes, now we're gonna go to the fishing pole, and it's a straight line. So best way that I have found to do a straight line is just with my whole arm, not this kind of action. So I want a nice smooth, I'm gonna go ahead and use that Prussian blue, maybe add a little bit of green. I want enough on my brush, but, and actually the pole in the picture is light. So let's go a different direction at first. I'm gonna use this eradicator again. It's very thin, so I can get a pretty fine line if I just follow. Same thing with my whole arm. Dabbing that out. Dabbing the color off my brush. I'm coming in. I'm not pressing in too hard. As I come into that darker area of water, it's lifting really nice. And with that lifted out, I think what I'll do is come back with gouache. And then I can add a little bit of dark detail below. So the gouache is going to dry lighter, or darker, excuse me. So I want to get it thick enough that it's going to, and then I'm twirling and spinning my brush so it gets a nice tip on it. And then let's just come right over the top. Nice, straight as possible. And where it comes into the water, you can't really see that white. But I want this to kind of fade out, so I'm just gonna use my brush that I cleaned and kind of fade that out into the, it's not the straightest line, but it'll do. A little bit of a shadow actually is a little bit blue, so I'm going to come in with a little bit of phthalo blue. Okay, so that to me is complete for a little, I guess you could call this a study. And as usual, I don't like to give my signature a, actually, hang on. As I say that, I would probably, this mat is too big of an opening, but I would probably be safe to put my signature up in here without risking cropping it with my mat. So teeny tiny. I don't like my signature to draw a ton of attention, so I keep it on the small side, and that was a little too dark, so there we go. And we'll call this done. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you're getting a little discouraged and you don't like where your painting is in a certain portion of it, keep pushing forward. I mean, the least you're going to do by doing that is learn something new, or learn something from what you don't like in the painting, for instance. But I ended up liking this one, and I'm really happy that I pushed forward on it, because it turned out better than I kind of was anticipating. So hope that encourages you guys if you're having a little bit of a block in your art practice, or you're feeling a little discouraged in the process. Just keep pushing forward. You will learn something and you'll grow. So that's what we're in this wonderful journey for, is to grow as artists. So practice makes progress. Remember, that is a great little motto, and I hope you guys have a great time painting, and we will see you in the next video. Take care. Happy painting. Bye-bye.